The stars above Varelli shimmered like shards of broken promises. Once, they had been symbols of hope for the Valari, gentle beacons in a dark universe. Now, they watched in silence as the sky filled with flame. Cities built on harmony and crystalline beauty crumbled beneath plasma bombardments. 1,000 years of peace disintegrated in a matter of days. Inside a trembling command chamber aboard the Valari's final Exodus ship, the Seraphiel, High Strategist Kalen stood motionless. Her golden skin, etched with biocircuits, glowed faintly in the dim light. Her eyes, too large for her narrow face, were not made for war, but they had seen too much of it in recent cycles. The last domes have fallen, a voice said behind her. It was Errol, her closest advisor and the last remaining elder from the Council of Soft Wisdom. His voice, always calm, now trembled with an undertone of rage he had never allowed himself before. "We should have fought," he said, quieter this time. Kalen turned, her mouth tight. "With what, Errol? Our ethics? Our poetry?" The Council demanded pacifism, while the galaxy demanded allegiance. We offered kindness. They demanded steel. Errol looked away, ashamed, not at her words, but at their truth. The Valari were an ancient race. Empathic, luminous beings who cultivated technology through resonance and art, not conquest. For centuries they had shared medical advances, offered energy solutions, opened diplomatic channels. But the Galactic Council had grown cynical. Efficiency mattered more than morality. Strength became currency. And in a war-torn galaxy, the Valari were bankrupt. The judgment had come swiftly. Labeled passive liabilities, the Valari were denied their sovereignty. Worse, their planetary defenses had been secretly disabled, sabotaged by a neighboring empire they once considered allies. The Seraphiel, a deep-range scientific vessel repurposed for survival, was all that remained. A fleet of one. "We're receiving scattered reports," murmured a technician from the lower deck. Civilian pods scattered across the sector, most not responding. Kalen's heart sank. Families, children, unarmed crafts adrift in a galaxy that had turned cold. "Plot a course for neutral space," she said, but the technician hesitated. "There is no neutral space anymore," he replied. "We have one option." The central holomap flickered. A pale blue orb, ringed by a dying transmission beacon. "Earth," Kalen whispered. Primitive, isolated, but untouched by the Council's hand. Errol leaned in. "It's not just isolation. We intercepted an old broadcast, human language, a declaration from a leader, United Nations. It was called, speaking of sanctuary, tolerance, unity." Kalen's breath caught. "A world that remembers peace. Or pretends to," Errol said, guarded. Kalen considered the weight of her people's future pressing behind her ribs like an unyielding stone. Earth was a gamble, but the only one left. Set course for Earth. Broadcast no signals. Stealth profile only. We arrive in silence. The technician nodded. The stars began to blur as the ship leapt into folded space. 2 days into transit, the quiet inside the Seraphiel had turned heavy. No chatter, no music in the air. The Valari mourned as they traveled, and mourning was never silent. It hummed in the walls, in the slow pulsing of their skin lights, in the stillness of their gaze. Kalen walked the halls alone that cycle. She passed the observation chambers where children clung to stories of a world they would never see again. She paused before the stasis corridor, rows of those too injured or too old to wake. Beside them stood Shiva, the ship's chief medical harmonist, adjusting the pulse fields. "You look tired," Kalen said. Shiva gave her a weary smile. "I used to heal bruises. Now I keep the dying asleep." Kalen placed a hand gently on the corridor wall. "We're almost through." Shiva looked at her carefully. "What if Earth refuses?" "They might. And if they call the Council?" "Then we flee again," Kalen said. "Or we die trying to give these children a moment of stillness." She left the corridor in silence, her steps echoing faintly. When Earth came into view, no one spoke. The blue of the oceans, the delicate shimmer of cloud cover, it all seemed impossibly vivid. After the sterile void of exile, it was too beautiful, too alive. Yet even now, as their ship coasted into lunar orbit, Earth knew nothing of them. No alarms. No reaction. Are we hidden? Kalen asked. Yes, the pilot confirmed. But for how long is unclear. Their satellites are primitive but dense. Observation may be inevitable. Errol entered, holding a small projection in his hands. The broadcast again, he said. It played. An old human voice, male warm, yet measured. We are united not by our might, but by our mutual hope. This planet, with all its flaws, will open its arms to those who seek peace. Kalen listened, her fingers clenched. She had led her people through annihilation. She had buried her kin beneath orbital fire. Now she stood above a world where one voice, long dead, offered them a chance to exist. Prepare descent protocols, she said. The crew turned. Errol blinked in surprise. We're landing, he asked. Without contact. No greetings. No threats. We arrive as they would have once arrived, with humility. But they may see it as invasion. They will see our children, our wounds. They will decide. As the ship aligned itself with Earth's polar shadow, Kalen watched the surface draw closer. Her reflection in the viewport was alien even to herself now. Battle-worn, luminous, yet carrying the hopes of a dying species. We were rejected by the galaxy, she said softly. Let's see if one planet remembers what it means to be human. On Earth, the sky over the South Pacific shimmered faintly, just enough for one observatory to record flicker. A technician raised an eyebrow, tapped a few keys, and frowned. Something just slipped past a lunar band, she said aloud. A second scientist looked over. Debris? No. Trajectories too controlled. She leaned in, voice tightening. This isn't one of ours. The Seraphiel entered the atmosphere unseen, shielded in low-orbit cloud cover. It would not remain hidden long, but it didn't need to. It just needed to land. And hope. The emergency meeting was held beneath Geneva, in a room so secure it hadn't been opened in 2 decades. The screen at the center of the chamber showed a frozen image, a silver-hulled vessel resting silently on Antarctic ice, its surface gleaming in the pale sun. No markings, no visible propulsion, no sound. President Mara Leland stared at it, arms folded, jaw clenched. Around her sat the appointed leaders of Earth's greatest powers. Diplomats, generals, scientists, none of whom looked any more composed than she did. How long has it been there? She asked. 6 hours, came the reply from Director Amir Kosa, head of the Global Space Observation Network. It descended without triggering a single defense satellite. Camouflage tech well beyond anything we've seen. And no attempt at communication? None, he said. Not yet. Across the table, General Harlan Strick leaned forward, fists resting on the polished surface. A stealth landing in the most remote corner of the planet is not an act of diplomacy. It's invasion protocol. Mara didn't disagree, but she also wasn't ready to start a war. Let's not fire the first shot out of habit. Dr. Eileen Varga, a linguist and alien anthropology specialist, tapped her stylus. We picked up a faint signal. Not from them directly. A playback loop. Our own UN address, broadcast decades ago. Someone or something is answering it. Mara's eyes narrowed. So they heard us first. Varga nodded. Possibly long ago. The message was meant to reach far corners of the galaxy. We never imagined it would return with visitors. Strick made a sound like a scoff. And now they're squatting in our backyard with God knows what technology. Kosa interjected, voice tight. It is a diplomatic emergency, yes, but the ship shows no active weapons, no deployed probes, and no signs of aggression. It appears dormant. For now, the general said. The debate continued, swelling with tension, but Mara Leland's mind was already shifting. Her instincts were honed by years of disaster diplomacy, tsunamis, pandemics, rogue states. And this, for all its extraterrestrial flair, felt familiar, a crisis with no perfect answer. We're going in, she said finally. Send a team, civilian scientific led, but with security detail. I want first contact handled with caution, without hostility. And if they're hostile, then we respond in kind. But we will not let fear make the first decision for us. The chamber emptied slowly, leaving Mara standing alone before the screen. She studied the alien ship again. Somehow, it didn't look threatening. It looked tired. A low wind dragged snow across the desolate plain where the ship had landed. From a distance, it resembled a fallen monument, half organic in design, faintly luminous at its seams, almost dormant like a deep-sea creature waiting to stir. The human delegation approached in silence. Dr. Eileen Varga walked at the front, her thick parka swirling in the gusts, flanked by a UN security escort and 2 exobiologists. Cameras recorded every second for real-time analysis, though no one watching dared speak. As they neared the ship, a thin seam opened silently in the hull, releasing a sigh of warm air tinged with scent, floral, strangely earthy. Then they emerged, for figures descended the ramp with unhurried grace. Their bodies were tall, slender, clothed in intricate armor that seemed grown rather than forged. One stepped forward. Female in form, eyes like mercury, her skin veined with gold light that pulsed gently with each breath. Eileen stopped, heart thundering. She held up her hand, a gesture of greeting drawn from both Terran and extraplanetary protocol. "I am Dr. Eileen Varga," she said slowly. "We welcome you to Earth." The alien inclined her head. Her voice came not from her lips but from the air around her, translated perfectly, as though filtered through memory itself. "I am Kalen of the Valari. We come not to conquer, nor to bargain. We come because we have nowhere else." The words settled over the team like snow. Kalen raised a small sphere in one hand. It projected a silent reel of devastation. Cities shattered in light, alien symbols burning under collapsing skies, small vessels vaporized in space. It ended with a simple image: a child, pale and shivering, sleeping beside an elder's body in the cold vacuum of a damaged craft. Eileen blinked rapidly. "Why, Earth?" "You reached us," Kalen said simply. "Your message spoke of peace. We believed you." General Strick's voice crackled over the comms. "Get their tech specs. We need to know what they're carrying." Eileen ignored him. "How many of your kind remain?" Kalen's eyes dimmed. "Fewer than 5,000. Scattered. Wounded. Some in stasis. We are not soldiers. We are not here to take." The silence that followed was both reverent and uneasy. Back in Geneva, debates turned brutal. Some nations saw opportunity, advanced tech, leverage over rivals. Others screamed of security threats, alien disease, hidden weapons. President Leland stood before the assembly again, her voice deliberate. "We offered sanctuary once, not knowing if anyone would ever hear. Someone did. And now they're here, seeking the very thing we promised. But can we trust them?" a delegate demanded. "They have no fleet, no demands, and they landed in Antarctica, not over a capital city." Another scoffed. "A tactical choice." "Or a humble one," Mara said sharply. "They're being hunted. That ship is their lifeboat." The vote split predictably. No clear consensus. Mara took a breath and made the call herself. "Grant them provisional refuge. Isolated zone. Monitored assistance. We treat them as asylum seekers, not assets, not threats." The backlash was immediate. Headlines screamed betrayal. Social media fractured, and protests surged in major cities. The image of Kalen's face, calm and exhausted, became both a symbol of hope and a lightning rod for paranoia. In Chicago, crowds chanted "humans first," while just miles away, others lit candles outside UN buildings, holding signs that read, "We are their Earth." Inside the containment dome in Antarctica, Kalen stood at a window, watching the snow. Her breath fogged the glass, unfamiliar with cold in a place so alien. Errol entered beside her, carrying a data pad. "The humans, they divide over everything." "They're afraid," she said softly. "That makes them dangerous. But it also makes them capable of compassion. You still trust them?" Kalen didn't answer at first. "Then they gave us shelter. That is more than the rest of the galaxy ever did." Errol exhaled, almost smiling. Outside the dome, a human child waved through the observation glass. Kaylin tilted her head in wonder. The child smiled, unafraid. Hope was a fragile thing, but even among strangers, it still survived. The Antarctic wind howled outside the biodome, but within, a delicate balance of warmth and artificial humidity cradled the Valari like a fragile greenhouse. Over the weeks, the humans had kept their distance, offering supplies, medical access, and tightly controlled interviews. The Valari, in turn, remained within the zone, a wounded species stitched together by resolve and silence. Kaylin moved slowly through the converted habitat. The crystalline spires that now stood where tents once were glimmered faintly with residual resonance, a sign of Valari energy adapting to Earth's environment. Children played under the glowing lights, their laughter tentative but growing stronger. But beneath the surface, tension hummed like a taut wire. Errol waited by a small nutrient pool, his eyes fixed on a projection hovering above the water. Data flickered. Heat signatures, atmospheric composition, planetary broadcasts. "We are not invisible anymore," he said without turning. "Their networks are crawling with theories. Aliens with agendas. Biological warfare. Religious trials." Kaylin stood beside him, arms crossed. "We expected as much. We should have landed in space, sent envoys gradually. You took a risk." "I offered truth," she said. "They would have feared us either way. This way, at least, we're visible. Present. Real." Errol turned, expression grim. "And now we are trapped here, monitored, unarmed. Do you not feel the pressure closing around us?" Kaylin did feel it. Every day, the glances from human observers grew colder. Soldiers around the dome lingered longer. The supply deliveries became more infrequent, the inspections more invasive. What had begun as sanctuary was beginning to feel like quarantine. Outside the biodome, in a reinforced tent ringed by drones, President Leland watched the Valari camp through a monitor. Her advisors debated behind her in hushed tones. They had begun replicating their tech. Low energy signatures for now, but it's spreading, warned Director Kosa. "They're adapting," said General Strick. "Not surviving. Building. You said they were dying. This looks like settlement." Mara didn't respond right away. She remembered the image of the Valari child pressed to the observation glass. These weren't invaders. They were refugees rebuilding their spirit. But the world was not so simple. "Send an envoy," she said finally. "One they might trust. Not military. Someone with empathy." Strick scoffed. "You think empathy will matter if they turn hostile?" "I think it's the only thing that's mattered so far," she said quietly. The envoy arrived 2 days later. His name was Jonah Hale, a humanitarian field officer with experience in crisis diplomacy. He was soft-spoken, observant, and, unlike most who had approached the Valari, unarmed. Jonah stepped through the energy seal of the dome, blinking against the bioluminescent haze. He walked slowly, purposefully, his breath visible in the cold. Kaylin met him beneath the resonant spires. She studied him for several seconds before speaking. "You come without weapons." "I come with questions," he said, "and a desire to understand." She gestured toward a smooth stone, a natural seat the Valari had sculpted through vibrational shaping. Jonah sat without hesitation. "You're not what I expected," he admitted. "Neither are you." He smiled slightly, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Your people, there's pain in them. But there's also a kind of music, like you're always listening for something." Kaylin nodded. "We listen to survive. Vibration tells us what speech cannot. It warns us of danger. It soothes the young. It records the truth when words are not enough." "May I ask," Jonah said carefully, "why now? Why Earth?" She studied him with a strange sadness. "Because everything else is ash. The galaxy measured our worth by the weapons we did not wield, and so it cast us aside. But Earth isn't a paradise," Jonah said. "You've seen the protests, the paranoia." "We see everything," she replied. "And still we came. Because your species, for all its flaws, carries a memory of compassion. You make war, but you also make rescue missions. You pollute, but you also plant. You forget, but sometimes you remember." Jonah sat back, absorbing her words. I'm here to help, he said. But I need to know, what do you want from us? Long term. Kalen's answer was immediate. Not power, not dominion. Only air to breathe, soil to heal, and time. Time for what? To remain. Behind them, a soft chime rang. Errol approached with urgency in his steps. Kalen, we've intercepted a council probe, he said without preamble. It's in low orbit. They've tracked us. Jonah stood as Kalen's demeanor shifted. The calm in her face gave way to steel. They will come, she asked. Soon. Jonah's voice was grave. The council that destroyed your home? Kalen turned toward him. Yes. And now, they will come to finish what they started. But they will not find us easy prey. Will you fight? He asked. We will defend, she said. Even without weapons, there are things we can awaken. Jonah hesitated. The humans won't understand. If you activate anything, they'll react out of fear. Kalen stepped closer. Then speak for us, Jonah Hale. Be the voice that reminds them we are not their enemy. He nodded slowly, the weight of it settling on his shoulders like a mantle. I'll try. In Geneva, alarms began to light up. The council probe was confirmed. Alien signature, approaching orbit, releasing encrypted pulses. General Strick was already on the comm. They're signaling Earth location to the Council Armada. We need to respond. Mara Leland's voice cut through. Respond with what? With orbital defenses. With readiness. This isn't about the Valari anymore. It's about Earth's sovereignty. Kosa added, if that probe marks us as collaborators, we could face consequences we aren't prepared for. Mara looked at the screen where Jonah's face flickered into view. They're scared, he said, but they're not aggressive. The probe isn't theirs. They don't want this war. They've already brought it, Strick snapped. No, Jonah said, eyes intense. The galaxy did. The Valari are only trying to survive it. Mara stood at the edge of a decision she knew would shape Earth's future. Align with the hunted or appease the hunters. Her voice was low, but unyielding, prepared to protect the dome. No offensive action unless provoked. And if the council comes knocking, she let the sentence hang, unfinished, because some doors once opened could never be closed again. The sky above Antarctica shimmered faintly, as if bruised by the weight of what approached. High in orbit, the council's probe had gone silent, but its final transmission remained, a beacon pulsing with dread across the stars. Humanity had seen only the tip of the signal's complexity. To the Valari, it was unmistakable, a declaration not of war, but of eradication. Within the biodome, the air had shifted. The resonant spires no longer pulsed gently. They thrummed now with rising urgency, a quiet warning that spread to the Valari like a second heartbeat. Every adult moved with purpose. The children were guided underground. Old songs were hummed, not for comfort, but remembrance. Jonah Hale stood beside Kalen in the inner sanctum of the dome, his eyes following the tracery of glowing lines across the walls. What are you doing? He asked quietly. Kalen didn't pause. Preparing. For what? For choice, she said. Ours and yours. At the center of the chamber lay a small, multifaceted core, the Valari seed. Until now, it had remained dormant, a relic they refused to activate. Now it pulsed with awakening light. Jonah stepped closer, sensing the enormity of it. What does it do? It listens, Kalen said. And if we allow it, it remembers. Remembers what? Our pain, our culture, our defense. It is the echo of our world, encoded in resonance. We built it not to destroy, but to hold back the end. Jonah swallowed. If you activate it, what happens to Earth? Kalen looked at him, unflinching. Nothing, if you stand with us. But if the council comes and sees you sheltering us, their response will be absolute. They fear our survival more than our extinction. Above, the skies darkened, not from weather, but from the burn of orbital descent. Multiple signatures now, not probes, ships, sleek, obsidian, and silent, council vessels. President Leland stood in Geneva's underground command center, surrounded by crisis feeds. Around her, chaos bloomed. Global forces scrambled into high alert. Civilians flooded social platforms with fear and theories, and UN channels flared with arguments that carried the tone of panic. "They're entering lower orbit," Kosa said, voice tight. "Communications?" she asked. "Nothing yet." General Strick slammed a hand on the table. "They don't need to talk. They're positioning. They're deciding whether to erase that dome or all of us." Mara turned to the screen where Jonah's transmission crackled. "Are they armed?" Jonah's face was drawn. "Yes, but not overtly. Their ships are cloaked with stealth fields and passive energy weapons, subtle but devastating. Can the Valari fight them?" "They won't win," Jonah said, "but they can make it costly." The line went silent for a moment before Mara spoke again. "What's the Council afraid of?" Jonah glanced at Kalen before answering. "That Earth will remember its better nature, that will shelter the vulnerable instead of betraying them." Mara turned back to her advisors. "Then let's be remembered." She issued the command. Global defense networks were to hold fire. All targeting systems remained offline unless the alien vessel struck first. Instead, Earth launched a signal, a diplomatic flare encoded with a message in every known Council dialect. The Valari have been granted provisional refuge under Earth protection. We seek no war. We answer no threats. The silence that followed stretched into hours. In orbit, the ships hovered, watching, calculating. Then one broke formation and descended. It landed outside the biodome, the snow melting in wide spirals around it. The vessel was angular and cruel-looking, alive with red sigils that crawled across its hull like scabs. A single figure stepped out, tall, clad in black armor that distorted the air around it. Kalen stepped through the dome seal to meet them. Jonah followed, heart pounding. The Council emissary spoke with a voice like shattering glass. "You shelter what the galaxy cast out. You invite their disease into your blood. Their weakness will spread through your species like rot." Kalen's voice was steady. "We carry no plague, only memory." The emissary's helm split open to reveal a face both reptilian and angular, eyes glowing with cold malice. "You are not memory. You are a threat the Council buried once and will bury again." Jonah stepped forward, careful but resolute. "Earth will not hand them over." The emissary looked at him as one might a gnat. "Then Earth will burn with them." Kalen lowered her head, the resonance in her bones rising like a storm. "Then we choose." She raised the seed. Light flared, not violent, but vast. The resonance core bloomed with color and sound, and in that moment, every Valari song, every lost city, every face turned to starlight, erupted in a chorus of living memory. It wasn't a weapon, it was history made real. The Council ship recoiled as the energy touched it. Not damage, but exposure. The truth of what they had done poured into the emissary's mind like fire. He screamed. The ship behind him pulsed erratically, its systems disrupted by the resonance field. The other Council vessels in orbit flickered, their cloaks faltering under the weight of Valari remembrance. Human satellites captured the event. An explosion of color in low orbit, followed by a sudden retreat. The Council ships vanished, scattering like frightened beasts. In the aftermath, silence returned to the ice. Inside the dome, Kalen collapsed, the seed dimming beside her. Jonah caught her as she fell, alarmed, but she was smiling faintly. "It wasn't meant to destroy," she whispered, "only to make them see." President Leland's broadcast went live across Earth within the hour. She spoke calmly, but with conviction. "We gave refuge, not because we were unafraid, but because we remembered what it meant to be hunted, to be hated, to be called weak. The Valari came with open hands. We extended ours. And today, Earth stood for something more than survival. We stood for memory. Across the globe, something shifted. Not unity, not utopia, but understanding. In the Antarctic dusk, Jonah stood outside the biodome watching the stars. Beside him, Kalen looked upward too, her voice quiet. "They'll return. One day." Jonah nodded. "So will we. A little stronger each time." Kalen turned to him. "Not warriors, but no longer prey." The stars shimmered overhead, no longer as cold,